The Lord be with you.
And with your spirit.
A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Matthew.
Praise the Lord.
Jesus said, "Come to me, all you who labor and are burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am meek and humble of heart, and you will find rest for yourselves. For my yoke is easy and my burden light." The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ.
For those that are visiting us from the camp, the staff of Catholic Charities tape the gospel and the sermon so that they can share it with the whole staff through the miracles of the internet. So ordinarily we wouldn't need to do this, but hopefully we'll pick it up well. And I say hello to everybody that will be watching this over the internet. If you heard in the first reading, sometimes the daily readings don't coalesce very well. You know, as you go through a part of the Old Testament, it doesn't seem to have a lot to do with a part of the gospel reading, but today especially, it surely seems to do that, because as Moses, who, by the way, if you're going through the daily readings the last few days, Moses has fled Egypt because he's a felon. He has killed someone. And then he's escaped and he's tending his father-in-law's sheep. And as he's doing that, he has this experience of the burning bush where God is calling out to him. And God's basic message is, I am concerned about the people of Israel, that you've been enslaved. And so Moses, although he's seemingly not the most worthy candidate, being a felon, is who God uses to do God's work. And so if you're ever doing charitable works and you say, what am I doing this for? I'm not such a good person myself. Why would I presume to represent Christ and God's love in the world? Well, God has picked some pretty unseemly characters over the years, and Moses is kind of a mixed bag, having murdered one of the Egyptians, and that led to his flight. So there are no flaws in ourselves that keep us from ministering and loving people as we are called to do that. And so Moses learns his name, I am who am. And so with that in mind, then the next week or two, the readings will be about the delivery, the Pharaoh being hard-hearted and finally letting the people go and going through the Red Sea and winding up in the Promised Land will take place over the next several days. And then in the gospel reading, we hear Jesus saying, come to me, you who are heavy burdened, and I will give you rest. And there's two sides to that reading. The first one is that hopefully when you or I are feeling burdened, whatever the burden is, there's no burden that's too heavy, too messy, that Jesus won't help us to carry it. And so hopefully we have ways of praying, ways of worshiping that will help us to take advantage of this offer of Jesus, come to me, I will help carry your burden. But then the other thing that happens is we are representing Jesus, Catholic Charities, and hopefully people perceive the Catholic Church as a Christian and charitable organization. And so if we're going to represent Jesus, then part of our ministry is to help carry the burdens of others, and that's the whole foundation of all kinds of social services that have arisen over the centuries. Not that, the Jewish Federation and the Arab group, I forget what they're called in Detroit, they do good work as well. But we specifically are representing God, the one who says, I am who am, and also we're representing Jesus, saying, I am concerned about your plight, just as God spoke out from the burning bush. And in a way, if we've traveled in a youth camp, we are also, I don't know what kind of, well, I'll just have to ask here, I guess. What sort of things have you been doing since you've been here? What kind of stuff?
I'm working with Catholic Charities.
Working with
Catholic Charities.
Catholic Charities. So what stuff have you been doing while you're here?
Cleaning windows.
Cleaning windows, all right. Anything else?
Cleaning bathrooms.
cleaning bathrooms, all right. You know, the ultimate service, I guess, is probably cleaning bathrooms. And there used to be a joke that said, well, I'll do this and this and this, but I don't do windows. But you even do windows, and that's good. And it's something that's needed, it's a blessing. And there's just all kinds of stuff, from cleaning the toilets. I mean, that creates an atmosphere within an organization. I was just at a surgical clinic yesterday with a parishioner, and it wasn't so clean in the bathroom, and I thought, ooh, you know, does this represent what this whole place is about or not? And so even those acts of service and just getting to know each other. I'm sure there are some of the group who are more outgoing than others, and some that are kind of shy, laid back, please don't pester me with wanting to know my name kind of people. And so, you know, it's for those of you that are more outgoing to kind of reach in and help and welcome and so on. And those are lessons you'll learn all through your life, that when you wind up in the helping professions as various kinds of counselors or giving out clothes or whatever, it's just so important to be that kind of person. I just became the payee of a very mentally ill man who is dying of cancer, and he was homeless, and I could not tolerate the thought of this man dying, lying, you know, in Buckham Alley in the dirt. So I wound up, we found an apartment, and I think probably the doctors told him he only had a few weeks to live. And I think in his disturbed mind, he figured, well, why pay rent if I'm just going to live a few more weeks? Well, then they finally evicted him, but they had tried to work with him. And anyway, so we're just, and I've been very touched by how generous people have been, because they hear that cry from within, that he's suffering and he's hurting, and that's a louder cry than whatever strange things he might do or say as a fairly severely ill person. And you kind of learn certain things. One is you don't take it personally when he says the most outrageous stuff to you, or calls you the devil or this or that on a bad day. And ultimately, though, he's getting more and more stable, and he's more and more consistent. The solemn response today was, the covenant of God will remain forever. I think that was words something like that. And that is the stability that each one of us needs. There's one place in the world, or there's one reality we can always depend on. It's God. And the more we become like God, because we're made in God's image and likeness, then our covenant with people is going to remain forever. And I think that's really what Catholic Charities is trying to do, is represent that covenant that God's made, saying in the Old Testament, I am concerned about the slavery of the people of Israel, or for Jesus to say, come to me, I know you're heavy burdened, give it to me, and I will give you rest. That's what you do every minute of the day. Whether you're cleaning a bathroom, whether you're an administrative secretary and you know, on a phone conversation with someone, or whether you're raising funds, or whether you are helping someone have an adoption, or whether you're handing out clothes, or whatever it is, it's all being faithful to that covenant that God has made with God's people. What a really good thing to get up in the morning to do. You know, it's just, there's power, there's dignity, there's so much that's a blessing about that. It's a privilege to do that. In a way, this may sound strange, it's a privilege to clean the bathrooms for the poor. You know, and that's the mystery that a lot of saints, including the one for today, St. Camillus, learned was it's a blessing, it's a privilege. People will say, oh, that's nice that you're doing this for Ray. They have no clue that I am getting so much more out of it than my friend is. And I mean, it's real, I'm not making that up, but I have grown, I've learned, I've just had so many blessings, and he really, in his heart of hearts, is a very good man. He would go to one charitable organization. I just learned this here. We had a little fundraiser kind of open house for him. And so people were coming, even a couple of judges, because he wanders the streets, he gets to know everybody. And so they came to this thing, and there was food left over, a large cake, most of it, and some other stuff. So he said, I want to take this down to Carriagetown Mission. And I said, okay. So he said, well, I want to carry some stuff in. I'll come in with you, but you do the talking. And so I said, okay. So we went in, and the director there happened to be there, and he said, Ray, it's better to give than to receive, isn't it? And Ray said, you're sure right. And so as we're coming out, Ray said, I used to go up to, and I don't know which, it might have been Holy Angels Convent, or I'm not sure, but I would go up and I would beg there, and I would maybe get a cake or a pie or something, and I would take it down to Carriagetown Mission and give it to them. Because in his way, inside his heart, he wanted to give and to serve and be generous, but he had nothing. So he had to go beg something, and then he would give it away. Well, that's a heart that's more generous than mine. So I'm seeing that day after day after day, and I'm sure all of us here that have ministered and worked with very destitute people have those stories where we came away saying, wow, there's a magnificent human being. And it might be in a very dirty shell, a disheveled shell, a very mentally ill shell, a person who has a horrible history or is very addicted. But within them are these magnificent people that are just waiting to have a chance to lay their burden down in the hands of Jesus.